How does the desire of the concept of envy come to obviate our access to the questioning of being Richtish in its proper sense? I move through the means of an example. Examples, of course, have come under some attack, especially since Hegel, but I eschew going into that. So the Gabriel, I think his name is something like, sorry, I forget the name, Tumpanumba, something like that. But the one who has been, in the last year or so, I believe, praised quite a bit by Slavoj Zizek, especially for his book on the desire of psychoanalysis. Zizek has proffered this evidence concerning the status of envy, which goes back to Aristotle, and saying that in this book there are some ideas which he who has devoted many decades to the study of the subject matter feels genuine envy towards in their development in that text, because he says, why wasn't it me who came to these ideas? This measure of faith, or to put it in somewhat Christian terms, faith, or what faith is the analog of ordinary love, as that which, thinking of the Apology, Plato's Apology, the highest form of love that points to the good. So the standard idea of there could be some things that are impressive, such as the power of a gangster, which, however, don't really deserve to be envied because they're despicable. Or there could be some things such as simple-mindedness, which brings not simple-mindedness within the normal range, but let's say the so-called condition of some kind of retardation, or however that is meant to be called in the current literature, Down syndrome or something along those lines. One says this person may be very blissful, and in a certain way, benediction flows through them, but it's not really enviable because the knowing intellect, which is the soul or nous, in its connection to the thing in itself, in the full wide sense, where the good as the methexis, or the participation with all the species and all the ideas, stands there as the object of nous proper. And since this bliss does not have access to this understanding, which is the highest understanding, then it can't be really enviable. Other examples of envy as a pointer from ontic happenings to the ontological realm, which means in the strict sense the movement of God to the thing in itself, the perception of God to the thing in itself. Truth has the perception of God moving to the thing in itself, where in Heidegger, Dasein is, as a solipsistic entity, almost God, or perhaps exactly God in the theological sense, of something we can conceive of, and which is therefore not a total mystery, and which, and therefore, in a certain way, contradicts Paul is saying that delight is unapproachable, the unapproachable way, um, in the epistle to the Corinthians. So envy here, what status does it ultimately have? It points us towards Agathon in some way. So Zizek is saying these notions about Lacan in the Gabriel Toponome book are have a gravity, and we can't take them seriously enough, and therefore they must be, in this proper sense, pointing towards Agathon. That's the inference, I believe. Now, one could ask, is that inference a laudable and even an enviable uh, inference? Uh, it would seem that the standard would be it is if it's pointing us towards Agathon. But what is Agathon? So Heidegger's critique here is that the Agathon, since Platon or Plato, is a kind of modification on ousia or being, so that ousia or being is understood um, under this. The town crier comes and tells us about ousia or being and says ousia or being is, in its full sense, Agathon, and then there's certain conditions, like that of a madman who's happy but he misses reality. He doesn't get to the Agathon, therefore he's not enviable. There's certain conditions which are borderline um, and more subtle than the ones given in, say, the Matrix films, where the issue is always seems to be do they see reality or are they drowned by illusion? But there's other more subtle questions, such as supposing Leonardo da Vinci staring at a stone takes the greatest pleasure, and this is a high intellectual pleasure, and it's as though he were a lunatic.